So anyway, so the talk. So I've been setting up a new department at MBZ UAE, which is the Mohammed bin Zayed University of Artificial Intelligence. And the department is, I'm really trying to think about what is the curriculum. So this is really about the curriculum in many ways. Trying to think about the curriculum for what do we teach AI students, the next generation of AI scholars, about human-centered design, ethics, and how you use AI tools to iterate, etc., etc. But this talk in particular was inspired by the move to agentic AI, where we are now going to be designing systems that have potentially multiple agents working, and workflows are going to be multiple agents. And I think leaders in companies are going to start to become the managers of semi-notionally sentient agents who will take action on their behalf. So agentic AI is artificial intelligence systems that can autonomously pursue complex goals, make decisions, and execute actions with minimal human oversight. And I think it's going to come to us to really think about how to design those. And so the first shift I want to talk about is moving from direct manipulation tools, which I think we're all very familiar with. We all grew up with direct manipulation, to agentic collaboration. This is not to say that direct manipulation will go away as a topic, but agentic collaboration, which is really partnership with AI tools, is going to be the big thing. And so what does this really mean? Well, if we go from tools to partners, we go from artifacts to actors, and this agentic era is really, it's moving us from thinking with things of passive tools like notebooks, glasses, any kind of sort of static-ish website, to partnering with agents and active AI. We are increasingly going to have interfaces and interactions that will self-organize and may not look the same when we go back. So consistency, how do we know when we want things to be consistent and when we don't? We know that for sort of optional interactions, consistency might not be that important. But if you're running a safety critical system, consistency and communication and trust are absolutely central. So we're going to go from offloading stuff to storage to collaborative reasoning. It's not just going to be you store something and then you go and work with it. It's going to be collaborative reasoning. And AI is not just going to be used, it is going to be consulted. And again, the nature of that consultation is going to be really important depending on whether we are doing something safety critical or not. So, agents need to possess interactional expertise. And so these are just some quick ones. From affordances to negotiations. Dear people online, you are obscuring my slides. It's not your fault. It's.
I think they can still see us.
Can everyone still see us? I hope so. So if the foundational concept is affordances like visual cues, we're going to go to add negotiations and have communications protocols. I mentioned direct manipulation, but we're going to have delegation and oversight as part of this. And we're going to go from consistency, which is the same input, same output, to probabilistic and variable outcomes. And again, the context in which we put these things is going to mean we have to think carefully about when we do that and when we don't, when we cede to the agents and when we don't, what something looks like or in the experience. We're going to go from error messages and technical fixes to breach and social repair. When an agent does something that breaches our expectation, how do we go in and do a repair on that? What are the interactions that what are the design of the interactions that we need in order to go and repair something? And some of those are going to be social recovery because these agents are going to be essentially social. Now my clicker didn't work. My clicker's not working. So the second shift on social is going to be really important. Does that work now? Thank you. Sorry. Collaboration, agent. Embodied agent. The second shift is profoundly important to me. And it is this notion of social and what I'm calling unweirding interaction. And so, universal design has been something that I certainly grew up with, this notion that we could build something for everybody, one size fits all. And I think increasingly we are seeing that that is not the case. The current AI are all trained on weird data, where weird stands for Western, educated, industrialized, rich, and democratic. This makes up about 12% of the population. I was in Silicon Valley for nearly 3 decades. I know how this plays out. I know what plays out when we send something to another part of the world and we call it, we go and we do localization, which is putting a patina over the top of something that deep in the infrastructure has the logics of the weird and the expectations of interaction of the weird. So the cognitive and cultural interaction breaches for people who are non-weird users, 88%, may violate foundation cultural schema that lead to what I've been calling transactional toil. You don't feel comfortable. Now, it might not be so problematic with some of our current interfaces, but once our agents are social and interacting on our behalf, making decisions and interacting with other people who might be important colleagues or our bosses or somebody we want to influence, that notion of how do you have a social interaction that represents you without understanding the social context and the social contract that is culturally located and situated. So if the weird model is transaction-based design focused on the individual and functional utility, and I have a whole spiel on all of the ways in which these concepts are embedded and show up in different kinds of interactions that I can share with you. The alternative might be relation-based design focused on the collective and social fabric, for example. And I have a project right now that is funded by Google, which is to look at design primitives for the agentic era that are culturally located. And specifically, we're looking at design primitives that are around social interaction in the Arabic region, and we're going to compare the UAE, Egypt, Morocco, and a couple of other places. Because we also don't want to universalize the notion of Arabic cultural norms for interaction. We want to start to be located and situated. All right, so I said I'm designing a curriculum now. I just got it accredited for the PhD and Masters. First PhD students will arrive in August. So we are in a new design era. And we are going, as I said earlier, from architects to choreographers. I love this notion of the agents are people who are agents. We will choreograph, and there will be some improvisational choreography based on the situated context, where they will have to communicate with us, we will have to communicate with them, and they will be communicating with each other. So it's going to be very complex. So we can't just add AI as a module. We have to augment the foundational skills designers are taught. And we're moving from designing objects, as I said at the beginning, to designing relationships. And I think that's a really exciting and critical move. So here are just some of the things that I've been thinking about in this world of empathic and situated AI. These might be right, they might not. This is me sort of, bringing it to you all as brilliant people who can send me comments and say, hey, you haven't got this, or you've missed that, or I don't agree with that. So this is very much a conversation. So the first thing is like visual hierarchy and typography, something very important to me. We also need prompt engineering and context anchoring, user personas and empathy maps. We need micro-sociology and anthropology. If I had my time again, I'd be an anthropologist because I love humans. Even when I don't like them, I love them because they're so fascinating. We have wireframing, which is the happy path, to repair dynamics and designing for failure. We have usability testing, still very important, very, very, very important. But trust calibration has to be added, especially for safety and agency and giving people the feeling that they are, agents in control of agents. Design thinking with universal solutions to what's been called pluriversal design, which is local insights beyond weird. And it's not just polyvocal, as in the voices of others, but it's a pluriversal, which is the plurality of many different kinds of ways of thinking and being and existing in the world. And so the key takeaway, and I'm going to roll up now, is we are no longer designing predictable interaction paths. We are designing relationships between humans and alternative intelligences. And I think we have to think that there's multiple kinds of intelligence, because each of these different systems may be embodying, representing, and sharing different ideas of the world, and they need to explain themselves. So we're designing for context, trust, and repair. We're more than pixels and code, but pixels and code really matter. But we are really designing relationships, and I think we are the community to lead in this, because those building the AI tools do not understand what they create half of the time. Very, very brilliant colleagues, love working with them, but what the consequences are for human action and interaction is often not thought through. And so I don't know whether we'll have questions now.
One question now.
One question.
And then we'll do a round.
One question.
Yes.
Over there.
What do you mean by repair? Social... Repair what?
Yeah.
Sorry, sure.
The question was...
The question was, what do you mean by repair? So,
repair and recovery.
So the concept of repair comes from conversation analysis. And so in conversation analysis, there are a couple of these really critical concepts. One is a breach. So if I that's a sort of microsociology concept. If I go into a situation and I don't go along with the normal social codes, for example, if you get up in the morning and treat your family like you're in a bed and breakfast, you are breaching a social code that has been agreed upon. And so much of what we do are these social codes. So these breaches might be the expectation of the agent that they will behave in a certain way, and then there's a breach. We might behave in a certain way, and the agent is like, what is going on? I don't understand. And that's part of that transactional toil, where I think cultural situated contexts make that more difficult. Anybody who's traveled, you've all traveled, you know where there's a breach. And then the repair is when you try to effectively make that better. And in so conversation analysis, when you say something and I don't expect it, I might say something like, I'm sorry, what? I don't understand you. Can you explain? And one of the things that we do really well as humans is do a sort of mind meld of trying to get perspectives, trying to understand when something is off. Like, what is it you mean? And then we do collaborative sense making to make sense of it. And that process is the repair process. You're basically taking a conversation or a social interaction and putting it back online, back in the direction together. So these are both kind of fairly heavily laden microsociological concepts, but I like them because I think we are going to move into microsociology with our agents and understanding them. Does that help?